Hello, Bryan Colter here, Evolutionary Astrologer, for another horoscope report for the upcoming Sagittarius full moon that happens on June 3rd or 4th, depending on what time zone you're in. And then the full moon period is extended out another 3.5 days after that. So let's go ahead and dive right into the chart. Now, I got to say, for this month, the astrological weather is a little bit calmer, okay? I know you see this big red box in the middle, which can be a little alarming, but the energy of this month, there's not a lot going on. I mean, the big event of June, of course, is Pluto is retrograding back into Capricorn. That doesn't happen for another 10 days or so. I'll probably talk about that more in the next video. So that's a biggie. Then we have 2 planets going retrograde later in the month. We have Mercury changing sign. I think it's changing sign twice this month. And those are important. There are energetic shifts, but, you know, it's, gosh, I mean, the last couple of years, the 2020s started off with a bang with that Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And we had the the Saturn-Uranus square the couple of years after that. We had the great conjunction of Jupiter-Saturn. So we've had a lot going on astrologically over the last few years, probably enough for a full decade. So it's kind of nice when we get some respite. You know, the energy ebbs, the energy flows. And now we're in more of this, let's say, flow state where we can still work with this full moon. And it is quite energetic, as we'll discover. But the energy isn't as heavy or pressure-oriented, which is good. It's nice to have that every once in a while. So here we are in the middle of Gemini season. The sun is at 13 degrees of Gemini, and now we've hit this Sagittarian full moon. And this is lighting up the axis of fire, Sag is a fire sign, and air, Gemini is an air sign. And air and fire like each other for obvious reasons. It represents energy, life force, a kinetic blast of, in this case, experience. If we look at this axis, Sagittarius and Gemini, although they're opposed signs and they have much different agendas to achieve what it is they want to do, the goal is the same basically for both of these symbols and the opposite sides of the same coin. So that same coin would be the desire to learn, basically. Both of these are the symbols of learning. Now, Sagittarius is classically known as the gypsy or traveler archetype or the pioneer archetype. It's also the scholar, the philosopher. And on the face value, these symbols feel very different from each other, but there is a commonality connecting all of them. And that is this more extroverted, action-oriented fire sign energy, extending beyond the tyranny of the immediate and the familiar and embracing the unknown. So it's the symbol that says yes to life. It's the outrushing power of fire, okay? So there's different ways to do that. Travel, as a Sag myself, is one of my favorite ways to learn. But then we can also study something that fascinates us or study something new, or we can ask the big questions in life through the more intuitive function of the philosopher archetype. It's also the sign of beliefs and religion. So during the Sagittarian full moon, this is a lighter, energetic, more exuberant, optimistic moon, which is wanting us to keep our eyes on the horizon line and seek something out there that we previously didn't know before. So this more expansive energy of moon in Sagittarius, the evolutionary task here lies in basically learning. But during this full moon period, it's going to extend over about the next 4 or 5 days or so. The goal is to try to pack the experience of 10 days into 5 days. That's the spirit of it. And to go beyond your comfort zones, because, sometimes we get caught in too much repetition. Our life becomes a little static or boring or overly mundane. And the energy of Sag represents, the urge to break up common patterns of experience and routines which have now had a more stultifying effect on our evolution. It's time to shake things up, throw ourselves a curveball. When in doubt, go on a trip, especially if it's spontaneously, because Sagittarius likes to be more lively and spontaneous. Now, you could apply this principle across the board in your life in whatever direction you want, but you can also take a look at where is Sagittarius, the symbol of Sag, in your own personal birth chart. And then once you learn that, you'll know that this full moon is happening in that particular house of your chart. If you see this inner ring, these are the 12 houses of your chart. And this chart that I've drawn up here is, where I'm located here in Portugal, so we can ignore that. So you can see here the moon is in between the 7th and 8th houses. But in your own chart, you're going to have Sag somewhere. And where you have Sag, that full moon is going to be activating that particular house, which will give you a better idea of where this learning, expansive energy wants to be felt and experienced in your life. And if you don't know what I'm talking about or how to draw up your own chart, I do have a 45-minute tutorial that I sell on my website. I'll put a link above if you're interested. So this full moon does feel lighter and more energetic. Now, during this full moon period, if you're not feeling particularly optimistic or exuberant, it's not like you're failing the new moon, but the invitation would be, okay, bring yourself into a place that feels foreign to you, that also might be exciting. And through those sets of fresh experiences, that exuberance might be generated within you as, again, you leave the tyranny of the repetitive and the familiar and kind of shock your senses in such a way that brings more of that energy out of you. Why? So that you can learn. That's really the end game. Now, as I said, there is this big square in the middle, which does bring about some tension, or it can, where you have Venus, which is about to change signs into Leo, by the way, a day or two after the full moon. So I'll say some things about that. But as you can see, this Venus is opposed Pluto, and it's square the nodes. This is an important event. It's not the headliner, but it can be worked with. Venus opposite Pluto can bring challenge and sometimes drama into our close interpersonal relationships. Not to just create a psychodrama in your life, but present you with the evolutionary intention and to kind of work through some stuff in the relationship, which is not always a comfortable or breezy process. But, especially for this Pluto-Venus, if it's landing in a sensitive place in your chart, especially a relationship-oriented house, you may experience this. But across the collective, we will see some pain or some drama come up in these close relationships, at least above random chance. But if that happens, because, with full moons, emotional passions do run at a higher voltage. That's true. And if it does manifest in some hardship in relationship, it's, the evolutionary intention is to work through that, work on your stuff, to psychoanalyze, okay, what is my baggage? What is my trauma that I'm bringing to the relationship? And how can I try to ultimately transform that? And, if the couple's working towards the betterment and evolution of themselves and the couple itself, they can transform the relationship and deepen the bonds of connection between them. Or they can just ignore the emotional triggers that arise to the surface and then continue to antagonize each other, and then it does turn into the psychodrama. So that'll happen sometimes, but this is a more minor event, in my opinion. Now, Venus entering into Leo is quite significant. Venus loves being in Leo. Again, this changes signs just on the 4th or 5th, just a day or two after the full moon, still during the full moon period, so it's important to talk about it. Where Venus is the goddess of love and the goddess of the arts, very creative planet, relationship planet, and here it is entering the sign of Leo, the performer, which is a very creative sign, and it's joining Mars here, also in the sign of Leo. So there's some creative energy that's quite strong now because of this factor, but also you have 2 planets in Pisces, which is a very creative sign. But really the big one here is that Jupiter has just entered Taurus, and then you have Mercury and Uranus in Taurus. And Taurus is a sign that's ruled by Venus. And one of the archetypes associated with Taurus is that of the musician. It's a very creative sign. So you have, especially in a couple days when Venus changes signs, You have, let's see, 7 of the 10 planets in creative signs. So creativity is a huge theme during this time. And we integrate these two energies, these two symbols of learning, Gemini and Sag, along with all these planets and very creative signs. The idea would be, if you have a creative hobby, great, perfect time to really lean into that. But also, there might be a new creative hobby that you might want to be seeking out now. That would be a great way to work with this. You know, the freshness of Sagittarius, wanting to look out at the horizon line, see what else I can get myself into. You know, how can I learn? And learning something new, you're likely to make some mistakes, and that's classic Sag as well. You know, a sign that's susceptible, the sign that's most susceptible to making colossal mistakes in their lives. I say that with a grin, being a Sag myself. And why are Sages meant to make very interesting mistakes throughout the entirety of their life? Well, because we learn the most through mistakes. So you pick up a new artistic hobby. Sure, you might suck at it. You'll stumble through it. You might make some mistakes, but the learning is there. Learning is the prize, and you might have a great experience there. Or if you just have an art form that you love to do, continue to do, again, really lean into that. Now, this is often correlated to what we would classically consider the arts, but it extends beyond that. Leo is the symbol of practicing vulnerability through self-expression. And practicing vulnerability through self-expression is great for relationships now, especially with this Venus opposed Pluto, as I was hinting at before. But then also practicing vulnerability through self-expression through some form of creativity. Yes, it could be the classics like theater or painting or drawing or writing or something like that, but it could also be a creativity that's not normally thought of, like growing a garden or cooking a good meal, or doing woodworking or something like this, or dancing. You know, dancing's a very body-centered activity. Taurus is the most sensual sign of the zodiac, meaning of the senses, of the body, of nature, okay? So dancing is a very Taurus creative activity. And as I said, this is a lighter energy, and it's meant to be that, you know, so we can get a break, so we can have a good time, so that we can dance, you know. And there's a famous quote, I think it's from Leonard Cohen, I'm not exactly remembering correctly, but I think it was him. He said, you know, put your hat on your headache and dance, you know. And of course, there are headaches in life. And especially when Pluto goes into Capricorn, that might be a time to look more at the headaches of life, you know, to look at our traumas, to look at our psychological wounds, especially when it enters Capricorn over the last 15 years, because it entered Capricorn in 2008. And Pluto in retrograde going back into another sign is very introspective, looking within, you know, working with those headaches, or really looking at the root cause that's creating that metaphorical headache. So there's a time for that. But this time feels more, you know, yeah, the headaches are there, but maybe sometimes we can just put our hat on it and have a good time. You know, that's the spirit of this event. So creativity and fresh experience. This makes me think of the book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that book. Excellent book. And it's a book designed to bring up people's creative genius, to stimulate people's creative genius. So if you have, you know, writer's block or creative blocks, that's a great book to work through. And Julia had 2, let's say, prescriptions that she was very adamant about in that book. One of them was called the famous morning pages, where you, as soon as you wake up, you basically streaming consciousness write 3 pages every morning. And that's important, but that's not what I want to really focus on here. It was the second thing. And I forget what she called it, but effectively it was like taking yourself out on a personal play date. I think it was once a week. Go to some place new. Do some new activity that you've never done before that you think will bring you some joy. You know, maybe it's going to an art gallery or going to a new movie house to see a type of movie that you wouldn't normally see, or, you know, going out to this nature spot that you've never been. You know, it's the intention of having a fresh experience and taking yourself out on a personal date. And I love this idea. And I think it's been a long time since I read the book, but I think the idea was by having these new, sights and sounds and smells and experiences, and, it being pleasurable and joyous, it kind of fills up your subconscious mind or your creative well. The theory would be, if you've reached creative blocks, your creative well has run dry somewhat. And this was one way of many that she talks about in this book to refill your creative well. So I love this idea as a metaphor mainly, but maybe even doing it literally, of taking yourself out on a personal date. I think she also stressed the importance of doing it alone. It's kind of an act of self-care as well. Taking yourself out on a personal date, doing something new, something fresh. That's very Sagittarius and Gemini. To learn something new, to refill your creative well so that you can express all these planets in creative places right here, and practice vulnerability through self-expression, and put your hat on your headache and dance. The headaches will come back, but let's just take a break, have a good time, let yourself rip, lean into this more, let's say, extroverted, outward pushing energy to increase the capacity at which you can learn, is basically the goal. So this was a shorter video, but as I said, there's not a whole lot going on. And the meditation we're going to transition to right now, and this is a meditation designed to basically super energize your etheric body or your energy body, because there's so much energy during this full moon. Therefore, doing a meditation that supercharges your etheric body will help to give you that fuel so that you can ride out this wave of experience. So this is the core evolutionary intentions, with the goal being to expand our consciousness. As usual with the meditation, I use binaural beats to help bring you into that deep meditative state, and I hope you enjoy it. Take care. Close your eyes and get a nice, comfortable position. Take care that your spine is straight. And make any last micro adjustments to relax your body. And focus on the breath coming through your nose, and feel the air go deep into your lower lungs and expand your belly nice and slow. And slowly exhale from the belly and lower lungs, and then the upper lungs. And just follow that breath back into your belly as you inhale. And exhale nice and slow. And enter into the meditative state through the breath. Rhythmic, comfortable breathing. And now add the visualization of a bright sky blue etheric vitality entering in through the nose with the air, entering the lungs and belly and spreading throughout your entire body. Sky blue color. And as you exhale, the air goes out, but the energy stays in. And big inhale, breathing in the energy, spreading that sky blue color throughout your body, visualizing yourself as a being of sky blue. And as you exhale, visualize darker grayish spots of stress leaving with the air. breathing out the stress. So breathing in the blue and breathing out the stress. Breathing in peace and harmony into your system with the blue, and breathing out the stress. And maintain this breath and visualization for a little bit more. Now expand your awareness throughout your entire body and see that sky blue color. And on the next inhale, see that color begin to shrink inside your body and consolidate in your stomach area, behind your belly button, into the size of a small ball, a little bigger than your fist. And keep your attention point on that ball in your stomach. And on the next inhale, see that sky blue color change to a brilliant gold sphere in your stomach. And breathe in deep, deep into your belly and see that golden sphere glow brighter, more luminous. And as you exhale, the air goes out, but the energy stays in your stomach. And with each inhale, you see it brighter than before. And with each exhale, the air goes out, but the energy stays in. And make the breath intentional to feed this core energy center with more life force. The breath is nice and slow as you can manage, that is comfortable. And the exhale is just as slow. The slower the breath, the more intention you have, and the stronger the visualization, the more etheric vitality you store in this center. The Taoist mystics from China call this the lower dantian. And it's the main energy storage of your etheric or energy body. It stores there. And in the Lord's Prayer, give us this day our daily bread. isn't a reference to food, but our allotment of daily energy. The more you focus this golden color in the center, the more energy you store. And maintain this visualization, intention, and breath for a few more minutes, and then I'll come back. Gently place both hands over your belly button. If you're a man, right hand over left. If you're a woman, left hand over right. And visualize that golden sphere in your stomach. And keep breathing into it. With the intention of all the excess energy in your body is being stored there. And now begin to rotate your hands to the left counterclockwise around your belly button. 9 rotations to the left. This is going to lock the energy in your stomach where you want it. Store it there. And then when you're done with the 9 rotations, reverse direction to the right, another 9 times. This is sealing all the energy in the lower dantian. And now you can use all this cultivated energy in your future explorations from a more enlivened place. Gently return to your awareness, to your whole body, to the environment around you. Very gently begin to shift your body. Wiggle your fingers and toes. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes.